Hello to you all again, I'm Phil Liggett and this is the 59th Fleche Wallone over 205 kilometres, 10 climbs making up the day's route. The passage over the wall in Huy, where the race finishes, it starts in Spa, is climbed 3 times. And this little group is now trying to make some headway after a day of not a great deal of aggression, but now 1 or 2 riders trying to show their worth here. This is Evgeny Berzin, who won Liège-Bastogne-Liège so well last year. And this is Vladimir Belli, Fondriest team. Enrico Zaina, number 47. And this is a very workmanlike group. This is Martin Den Bakker, the Professional of the Year in Holland last year. Laurent Jalabert, yes, Jalabert now in this race, having missed out rounds 2 and 3 in the World Cup. This isn't a World Cup counting event, by the way, but the upcoming Liège-Bastogne-Liège will be. Lance Armstrong going through. On the offensive a lot today, and no doubt giving his legs a little workout, because he rode so well in Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year when he finished second. And there's Maurizio Fondriest, who seems to get in every move that matters. Tremendous race reader. Maurizio beaten in Milan-San Remo by Laurent Jalabert. And Gianni Bugno here too, winner of the Tour of Flanders last year in that great sprint with Johan Museeuw, and the champion of Holland, Steven Rooks. And it looks as though the main field is cracking at last here, as the groups now try to form at the front with some big names up in front. Fondriest, Rooks, Rolf Sorensen is here too. Lance Armstrong got his win early on this year in Paris-Nice, but he hasn't shown a great deal of form since. And no doubt preoccupied a little bit with the upcoming Tour du Pont in the United States, where he's finished second for the last 2 years. This is a very workmanlike group now. Small hills that lurk on the circuits here. The Ben Ahin is often used as a final springboard before they go down to Huy, where they climb. It's a 20% climb right up to the finish. It's an absolute brute, and they finish right on the summit. And the group, this is its first real sort out today. The next climb we'll see is the Côte de Paille. And there's a rider launched an attack there, and somebody chased him down, but no big reaction from the field. In fact, Armstrong looking round there and sitting out of the saddle to see if anybody else is going to take up the chase. But 2 riders made their move, and this is Rolf Sorensen. An interesting move this, and he's being chased by Mariano Piccoli, 24 years of age, second-year pro. Well, he's in his 3rd season, beginning just now, in fact, Piccoli. And this is Axel Merckx, who's got up out of the group. So Armstrong looking round there, may well have tipped off Axel to go up to this group. And the other rider joining is Martin Den Bakker. So there are 4 riders here now. Mariano Piccoli, Rolf Sorensen, the Dane, Axel Merckx, who's a Belgian of course, but this year has signed a contract with Motorola, and Martin Den Bakker of the TVM squad. Well, Merckx, in fact, spent a couple of days before this race ill in bed, and there was some doubt he would even make the start today. But now he's going out in front, and this is the first significant move of the day. Still around about 55 kilometres to go. Well, he doesn't exactly look like his dad, does he? But he probably hasn't got the overall power either of Eddy Merckx. But it must be a terrible weight to carry on your young shoulders when your father was as good as he was. So Motorola giving him his chance on this team. And the main field, or what's left of the main field, and it looks to be around about 30 riders there, trying to decide what to do about the move here, and a little bit of reshuffling. And this is Francesco Casagrande, we've just gone through on the inside of, our motorcycle cameraman, digging very deep into the field today. Casagrande, Jalabert is up here too, and an attack there. That looks like Bruno Cornier for Chazal, who's gone clear. They're trying to get something going here. That 4-man break has really livened this race up. And there's Bruno Cornier. Well, every year this man tells me he's retiring, and every year he comes back for another season. He's a commercial airline pilot as well, and I thought that's what he was going to finish up doing. But he used to ride on the Z team the year that Greg LeMond won the Tour de France, and Cornier still enjoying his cycling. Now, digging in deep. That break of 4 is not too far away at the moment. But they're working themselves away, and the Ardennes looking absolutely beautiful. This race starts way out, in fact, in the east of Belgium, in Spa. And then it's a long, steady haul when it moves across. It's still in the east, but it moves towards the centre of Belgium, where it finds the hills of the Ardennes. And then it finishes in Huy. Part of the Ardennes weekend. In fact, this race in Liège-Bastogne-Liège used to be run on consecutive days in the old days. It really was a weekend of racing, and what a tough programme that was. And there's still a joint competition to find the champion of the Ardennes with the Fleche Wallone and the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. That's Piccoli, number 67, and this is Axel Merckx. Piccoli, turning professional back in 1992, is yet to win a pro race. Same can't be said for Rolf Sorensen, who throughout his career, he's 29 now, he's won 38 races, and he turned pro. This will be his 10th season starting now. Axel Merckx still waiting with his first win, but he's only 22 years of age, and Martin Den Bakker, who's 26 in this group, he's had 6 wins since turning pro in 1990. Last year was a very happy and indeed a very sad year for him, because he was later named the Dutch Professional of the Year, but indeed he had to withdraw from the Tour de France right on the line because his sister was killed in a car crash. A very sad moment indeed. Now looking at this little group here, this is Giuseppe Petito, another one of the strong Italians who's always willing to do a lot of work, and number 224 there, that's Gianni Berzin, and there is Jalabert right in the middle. He has been the rider at the start of this season, and he's taken, surprisingly, he took time out in Paris-Roubaix, which is a French race, of course, and they rather disappointed the French public by not coming because he had such good form. Now he's coming towards the Fleche Wallone here with a win just a couple of days ago in the Grand Prix Amorebieta, and he's in fact won 9 races. Tremendous start to the season for Jalabert, and all this despite the fact that his young baby had a nasty bone operation just about January time, so there's a little private concern there. Things have gone okay, and Jalabert has found his form very early on this year. And the Once team are such a well-knit team. I had the pleasure of being with a number of them in Australia in January of this year for 5 weeks, and they even looked after me on the bike, but they did push me, I admit to that. And the reason Jalabert couldn't be there was because of the sickness of his young child, but he said he would love to come one day. Well, he certainly found his form. 9 wins already, including the big one, Milan-San Remo. People are now talking about Jalabert not as a sprinter, but as a long-term, big-time winner. Well, if he's going to win today, his first target will be to recuperate these 4 riders who have gone clear. The gap is not great. It's around about 40 seconds, I think. Strange mixture. Obviously the experience here is Sorensen, and Sorensen, given half a chance, or a little hill indeed, will be gone, I think. And again in Belgium, we seem to always get the riders surrounded by many motorcyclists. Nice workmanlike group this. The wind is not too strong at the moment. Axel Merckx, he looks as though he may have fallen off recently, judging by the scar on his elbow. And his father makes the bike frames as well. In his little cottage industry just outside, well, very near to Brussels Airport. And he's not too far away from the break today, Eddie either. Podenzana, champion of Italy, trying to force his way up to the front now. This is now a changing group here. As the riders start to come back in, that is Dmitry Konishev who's got across, and Konishev is always a rider who gives his best if he finds himself near the front. A rider who'll search for the lone break. Giorgio Furlan, last year's winner, is here. The Italians having won this race for the last 5 years. with Argentin, who's won it 3 times, Furlan, who won the race 2 years ago in 1992, in fact, 3 years ago, and Argentin won it in 1994 for the last time. Moreno Argentin now retired, and this was his goodbye victory. Well, Benesto have got their Frenchman up here, Stéphane Herlot. As we look down on the 4 escapers, now this little downhill stretch a little bit deceptive here. Such different countryside to the route of the Tour of Flanders, the other spring classic, which has already been held this season now and won in grand style by Johan Museeuw. But out in the Ardennes, the roads are a lot steeper, and certainly when you start to go up, they're a lot longer. Den Bakker digging deep. Former Dutch amateur champion. Doing a good turn on the front to keep this clear. And now wants a little bit of help, and in fact coming through without any problem from Sorensen. And then Piccoli. And the long lanky legs of Axel Merckx. In fact, that's a rather strong turn by the Italian, and Axel having to dig deep just to get up to him. There's Sorensen on the wheel of Piccoli, and Axel has gone through. Well, he knows his father is in the following car, and that must be a strange feeling. Still a big victory awaited from Motorola this season. Lance Armstrong got the win in Paris-Nice, and I suppose it was reasonable to expect then there would be a few more to follow, but they haven't come yet. Once a team manages to get onto the winning trail, the click, and away they go. This breakaway is not going far enough away from that chase group, because the strong riders seem to be monitoring it. And there's Eddie Merckx studying his son, and will no doubt make comment on his style when he gets him back home tonight. But he'd be delighted, I'm sure, to see him in a breakaway, because Eddie only knew one way to race, and that was force the pace and split the field. But certainly his face giving nothing away there. Very tall man indeed, Axel. Good name for a bike rider. Axel Merckx, isn't it? I've met him only once, but he is a very, very nice person to speak to, and has got excellent manners, and I'm sure his father instilled those into him. And he speaks good English as well. But this breakaway now has not got the working cohesion it requires. There's riders doing strong turns, then it's those riders who are going down the line aren't recovering in time to do their turn. A little bit more of a panic in the breakaway rather than a liaison required to make time over that chase group. Very heavy the roads here. A little bit of a steady drag as well. Belgium, Holland, Denmark and Italy. This is Piccoli, still searching for his first win in his 3rd season as a pro. And big Martin Den Bakker. And it looks as though they may have got themselves in a little bit of better order now. And maybe the time check will go up a little bit. 4 wins last year for Martin den Bakker, including the Tour of Midden-Zeeland in his own country of Holland, and a stage of the Tour de l'Avenir, which used to be the Amateur Tour de France, the Tour of the Future, it means quite literally. But no big results in the major races. His best sort of classic result was 27th in the Amstel Gold Race in Holland. Now the Lamprey riders are seemingly trying to get something organised here to try and get this race closed down. They want to do it before they start the climb of the Huy. I think I caught a glimpse of big Sean Yates sitting in the centre of this bunch, which has swelled now somewhat. I think there's about 70 or 80 riders got themselves back into the contention here. This has become quite a big peloton. Den Bakker, it seems, unless it's our camera just catching it, but he seems to be doing more work than the others in this lead group. Pedaling a very high gear there, probably 53.15 or 53.14. Merckx having a little bit of a job to get by den Bakker here. He's done it now. This is Piccoli from the unusual camera angle. Well, the last circuit based on Huy here is 69 kilometres around. It's a long way, but at least they know what the hill is like. Still den Bakker driving on. Sorensen also not putting a lot of work into this group now, and I'm wondering if he feels it's not going to go anywhere. Here comes little Mariano. Keeping the pace up. Sorensen has slipped to the back and doesn't seem too keen on bothering. Here's the reaction now from the field. And the black board there, though it was a green board, telling the riders they've got 40 seconds, so it's not a great gap over the rest of them here. As the pressure stays on with Lamprey, Gianni Falazin keeping the pace going. There's Alex Zula, Stephen Rooks, Stefan Erlo. So some good names in this chase down now. A very serious workman-like group. It's on the climb of the Côte de Pays. And Lance Armstrong still in this leading group, but he is the only Motorola rider I've noted now in this big bunch. And it is a big bunch too. It must be around 80 riders in here. And there's a couple of more Motorolas over on the right there. The wind keeping them pinned onto the edge of the road. So 40 seconds is really no gap at all. They've struggled to go away from this field. Rolf Sorensen getting an update. And Merckx not too happy with Sorensen wanting to drop back and talk to his team car. Sorensen not looking too good at all just in that shot. And I would have thought he would have been the strongest of the group. Now there's a beautiful picture. The Fleche Wallone becoming angry all of a sudden, stretching out as they catch the wind. Very, very exposed stretch of the road now, and it's not going to help the breakaway at all. The reason the team car is staying there as long as he can is because he's protecting the riders from the crosswind that's blowing. And he's just using the excuse to keep on talking to his team rider, Rolf Sorensen. So every little bit helps, I suppose, because the team can see this breakaway, or the race can see the breakaway right now. It's an extremely fast speed today in Fleche Wallone, and it must be running very, very close to the race record. There's Rolf, stage winner in last year's Tour de France, when he outsprinted Neil Stevens into Montpellier. But this group is working a lot better together. A lot more application here now. But the same could be said. This is going to be a very difficult stretch of the course for the riders just at this point because of the wind. Marco Zen setting the pace. And they're keeping the pace nice and steady now too. As Gerrit de Vries for Novello went through, and 134 is Roland Meyer for TVM. Alex Zula's had a great start to the season on the right of our picture, and not looking too much as though he's enjoying it right now, but nonetheless he's got plenty of effort in those legs at the minute. Got off to a great start when he won the general classification in the Tour of Mallorca, and then went on to win the Tour of Valencia, and he finished third in Paris-Nice behind his teammate Laurent Jalabert. The Once team have really been the early season team. And TVM well represented up here. That was Roland Meyer taking a drink. There's Zula again. Brian Holm just off our picture to the right. Nice steady pace now. That breakaway is not going to make much progress at this stage. Alexander Gonchenkov sitting there on the back wheel of number 94. Gerrit de Vries. Novell. There's Gonchenkov. He was involved in that big spill in the first stage finish of the Tour de France last year on Armentières that took out Jalabert and Nelson. But fortunately, he wasn't as most seriously hurt. Slight change of direction by the look of it now, because the field have regrouped at the front. They've survived that very exposed stretch, and now, and one has to say so too, is the four-rider breakaway of Mariano Piccoli, Sorensen, Merckx and Den Bakker. But you have that feeling that the big pack, they feel they have this race under control at the moment. It's been steadily regrouping at the back, and there's got to be 90 riders in this race now. Podensana standing out in his green, white and red jersey. Champion of Italy for a second year. There he is in centre. He seems to save his best performance for the national championships every year. And the Lamprey boys quite clearly thinking of Maurizio Fondriest here today, and they're doing an awful lot of work to keep this race in striking distance. Every time somebody accelerates to the front, just look how the main field strings out at the back. Now working away here is Alberto Volpi setting the pace now, being followed through by Zen of Lamprey. Gann have a few riders up here. And it's being left to the Italian teams to try and reduce that lead of four men. And Marco Zen seems to be the strong man on Lamprey today, or he's been designated the task of bringing them all back. Rolf Sorensen still doesn't look as though he's enjoying a very tough time out there today. And the coolest of them all seems to be Piccoli. And Merckx has said something to Sorensen. They both speak English. I don't think the Italian will speak any English, Piccoli, and Dembacke certainly does. So Piccoli just gets on in his own confused way with keeping this break surviving. Little glance there at Axel Merckx. Sorensen comes through. 30 years of age in a couple of days' time, Rolf Sorensen. His father Jens rode in the Olympic Games back in 1960. Sorensen, one of the early professionals, 20 years of age when he turned pro in 1986. I remember then at the time his ambition was to be the world's #1. Well, he has been very close. Finished his season well last year, Rolf Sorensen. A second victory in Paris-Brussels. And that coming at the end of a season in which he had earlier broken his wrist in the 3 days of De Panne in Belgium. There's never been a moment's relaxation in this breakaway. They've never had the joy of feeling that they have stretched the elastic to its capacity. They have simply just kept on pushing the pace as fast as they could, but they're hardly inching away from the big bunch, who are travelling equally as quickly. Well, I should imagine the winner of this will be starting favourite on Sunday in the La Doyenne of the Classics, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Well, I've still got that feeling it won't be one of these four. We'll see. Lampre are desperate to get a victory for their man, Maurizio Fondriest, second in Milan-San Remo. He won the time trial section of the 3 days of De Panne. And of course he was second in Ghent-Wevelgem as well. An enviable record by everybody's standards, but not by Maurizio Fondriest, former world champion. And nothing but the best for him. And I've found some allies now, because Novell are also beginning to share the pace here. And a lot of work being done by the Novell riders too to try and close this race down. Gerrit de Vries has worked very hard here for Novell. They've put in a relatively inexperienced team in this race today. They're saving their top riders for the upcoming Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Their best man is Yekimov, Vyacheslav Yekimov, and they've also put in their Latvian men, Arve Piziks and Dainis Ozels, new professionals. But we haven't seen them today. And nice to see Chris Boardman making his way up towards the front. A British rider. Riding for Gann. Double world champion last year, Chris, and the Olympic champion in Barcelona on the track. That was the first gold medal for a British cyclist for more than 70 years. Time trial and pursuit world championship, won last year, intends to try and defend them this year. Will also be hoping to penetrate the Ardennes, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, in a couple of days' time. He's looking forward to that. Well, there are the four leaders, and we will get at last some idea of the gap, and it doesn't seem to be very much indeed. These riders can't possibly survive. We have the typical arrowhead of the main field now, as they're being dragged along a very fine piece of highway, heading up towards the Côte de Boisseau. Novell, Lampre, And this gap surely now is not more than 30 seconds, if that. Maybe even slightly less than that. So Volpi, who's done a great turn there, drops away. And going through there is Santa Ramita, also for the Gaviz team. And Lampre also keeping the pace on. Is probably Zen also at the front. Get it to Feast off to our right. They're beginning to sense that the chase is coming to an end. Then watch for the counter moves. Volpi. Gaviz, who rode so well in this race last year. Team time trial formation. Axel Merckx. This has been a tough break. They've never had the chance to escape. Sorensen, I think, knows that it's not going to be long now. He's just checked over his shoulder twice, a double take, and I think he's probably seen the cars and bikes at the head of the big peloton. Once riders also becoming quite evident. Thinking of Jalabert. See if he's still got the same form. He certainly had it a couple of days ago when he won the Amorebieta Grand Prix. Well, a little bit of stiffness creeping in for Sorensen too, and I think he's feeling it's all a waste of time. And that, I think, is the order from the back for the cars to go away from the break, which means we're down to probably 20 seconds. Yellow flag always means danger in Europe, and that's the reason, the tight right-hander. And the field are virtually on them now. They've made the same right-hander about 8 seconds past, possibly 8 seconds. Well, they'll be on to the climb of the Côte de Boisseau any second now. And there's at least 90 riders chasing them down. I think, in fact, Sorensen stopped helping the breakaway now. Well, having said that, he's going through. No, he's not really putting his heart into that, and there's the reason why. The Lampre team and Marco Zen bringing the field up to them. In fact, this is Gonchenkov, the Ukrainian rider, who's finally sewed up the hole for Lampre. Dembacke just checking out to see who's coming. Not too much look of disappointment on his face, but they must feel it inside after all that racing out there. Volpi goes through, followed by De Vries. Pace stays on. There's always a chance another break will now form. Sometimes when the peloton is chased hard, they turn off just that little bit because they're tired of the chase. Alberto Volpi. Very good climber, but no doubt thinking of Giorgio Furlan or perhaps Berzin today, or even Bobrick, who won the Tour of Lombardy last year at the end of the season. They've got a very good team in this race. So round about 28 kilometers to go. I'm not waiting for 28 kilometers to go here. An attack from Castorama. And this is Sébastien Médin, placed in the World Amateur Championships last year, French amateur champion, and now having a dig himself in finding his legs as a new professional. Cyril Guimard perhaps seeing a lot of future talent in this young man. He certainly found the pace okay so far today in this semi-classic. And on to the climb of Boisseau, and he's going to give it some stick here just to see if he can test and bring anybody with him. Now he started something now, with still 28 kilometres left to go. He's got a gap. And this is a Gann rider coming across it too. So we've got two French riders on the top. This is Cédric Vasseur from the Gann team. Well, the French don't often do well in Fleche Wallone, but maybe today is going to be their day. Vasseur has continued. And there's a rider chasing him down behind too. It looks like Frattini of the Gavis team. But he's having a little bit of trouble to get onto Vasseur's wheel, and there doesn't seem too much consternation at the back of the field. But on this narrow road, they probably don't know what's going on. Vasseur sitting up now to see who's joined him. And that attack has again got a group off the front. And there's no number on Vasseur's frame indicating he may have had a bike change earlier today. This is Frattini. Now they've got to continue. There's no good sitting up now. If this group does join them, they'll have a nice little working group here. And then who knows? Well, Gann could also do with a little bit of success this year. They haven't had too much. Greg LeMond's old team. And that looks like Jalabert has gone through on the outside. And look at the acceleration of Jalabert. And Fondriest trying to grab his wheel as well. There's Fondriest and Berzin. Now there's a class trio for you. Laine Jalabert decided to continue the attack. He was in that little group that was coming across to the two leaders. And Evgeny Berzin, winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year, showing us he has the form for another shot at it this time out. And this is a tremendous piece of riding here now. Medin is the Castorama rider trying to hang on to three very accomplished professional bike riders, and this man, Laine Jalabert, has had 9 wins this year already. Berzin holding on to the wheel of Jalabert. Fondriest again showing his brilliant race reading. He saw the move and was on it in a flash. The eternal second of world cycling. Second already this year in Milan-San Remo and Ghent-Wevelgem. Well, Jalabert surely has the confidence that one requires at this stage of his career. Bernard Hinault reckons he is a man with the all-round ability and should not be disregarded as a rider who could win the Tour de France. We've always thought about him as a man for the green jersey on points, not the yellow jersey on time. Perfect attack. A lot of effort going to be made here now by these three, because they've got a good move with 3 solid riders. Either one of them capable of a victory. But Jalabert now would like somebody to come and help. He's made the attack. He's been left to do all of the work to open the gap. Berzin has made no effort to go by him. Maybe he can't. And Fondriest too has taken a little bit of time to settle in on the back wheel of Berzin. Heading up towards the top of the climb here. They need to keep full pressure on. They would like a few seconds before the descent, such as there is a descent here. Now Berzin's recovered and he's starting to work with Jalabert. And if he does recover well, he'll be a great ally for these three now as they settle down to a team time trial. What superb strength we have here now. Winner of this year's Milan-San Remo, winner of last year's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. The runner-up in Milan-San Remo and Ghent-Wevelgem in Fondriest. Sorry about the little bit of picture break that we experienced in the trees there. It's all due to our microwave links from motorbikes to helicopters. And this coming up now is in fact the other Castorama rider, the team leader, Armand de las Cuevas. What a surprising character this man is. He is such a talent, but we never know quite when he's going to show us what talent he really has. And now De Las Cuevas climbing extremely well. He's going to join the three leaders here, I think. No big performances yet this season for De Las Cuevas, but there could be one coming any minute now. Fondriest is in a spot of trouble again on the climb. He didn't ride that well in the Tour de Flanders by his own standards, and now it looks as though he's finding the pace a little bit rough here as well. De Las Cuevas trying to get up here, and now the Mercatoni Uno rider is Francesco Casagrande. Everybody's saying what a great future he's got. David Rebellin from the MG Technogym team also setting the pace up the front there too. And Steven Rooks, the champion of Holland, as a Dutchman, won the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France a few years back. There's the little group, and I still don't see the arrival of Armand de las Cuevas, so maybe he didn't quite make it. And Jalabert seems to be the strong man here. Fondriest, we can see De Las Cuevas, winner of the San Sebastian race last year, but he's been swept up by the group, but then it doesn't seem to matter because there's a nice, neat group coming across here. So that might be a wise decision by Armand to go back into this group for the moment at least and let somebody else do the chase up. I think that's Casagrande trying to get across to the leaders. Another rider who everybody is saying is going to now develop into one of Italy's best riders. No wins under his belt this year, but had a very good season last year. Well, there's no hiding on this section of the course. No Ardennes forest to tuck yourselves away in. Just the open, freshly ploughed fields before spring really hits town. Well, these three were among the favourites for final victory today. Jalabert probably the most favoured of them all, and despite that, the spirit of the chase is good. And a very workmanlike chase it is too, because the other teams have got their men here, and Lamprey, Once don't seem to have too many men left to block for Jalabert. They're the two chasers who are still trying to get across. And now up with the leaders, so Casagrande on the right. And little mixture again forming at the front. Martin Dembacker in the breakaway and now still has the legs here to charge the chase. Good view of Casagrande. Then Bacca. And Gianni Bugno goes to on the far right. And there's a useful man if he gets to the front. The Carrera riders beat Zeeberg, the Swiss rider on the Carrera team. He's in that line as well. Well, they're almost tapping on the shoulders of these three, but they can't quite pull them back. And it is still not that very much, is it? 11 chasers. Well, the gay list rider in this group is Francesco Frattini. Heinz Imbuden is here. Steven Rooks. Dembacker we've caught a glimpse of. Gianni Bugno we've caught a glimpse of. There's also Stefan Erlo from the Benesto squad. There's some useful men in this group. Now, 3 very talented individuals showing no signs of panic, but just keeping the pace nice and sensible. We are still, by my reckoning, on a record speed for this race today. They haven't slowed down at all. Nice, long, steady turns at the front so as the rhythm is maintained. Jalabert doing this one, a big one. Now he's looking for Berzin to come through. Berzin doesn't hesitate at all. Followed by Fondriest, holding his wheel nicely. So there's little Berzin. Another change of direction to break the monotony for these riders in the lead. A little pan back, and the gap isn't too far, but it's growing, I think, a little bit. And they're just about in the sights of that chase group. And there's a major regrouping in progress here. That's quite a split coming up. There's Jalabert. They all know about the quality of Berzin. Comes from Viborg on the North Russian frontier with Finland, although he lives in Italy now. There he is, the little man who was the pursuit and team pursuit world champion back in 1990 before he turned pro in 1993. Last year he finished 3rd in this race. He was one of 3 Gavis riders that dominated the race throughout the final stages. Now he's in the move again. So Berzin, who we hope will be a real attacking influence on the Tour de France this summer, having won the Tour of Italy so well last year, and the first Russian cyclist to do that indeed. Maybe he'll give Miguel a real run for his money when they clash in the Tour de France. Indurain already having said he won't ride the Tour of Italy. But last year was one of those magical seasons for Evgeny Berzin. 10 victories. And magnificent victories they were too. Well, the weather's slightly better than it was this time last year, with hints of snow in the air. And the gap is far from conclusive. It's the sort of gap that could be closed quite easily on the final climb of the Huy. And that chase group has swelled dramatically. But it's a question of how many who've come up are willing to chase and how many are there just to finish. The Motorola rider who's back here, Lance Armstrong, 151, just riding there in front of Dinas Ozels, the Latvian rider. Well, it was Armstrong who started the offensive early on today, so he should be pleased with his form. He finished 2nd in Liège-Bastogne-Liège a year ago, outwitted at the end by Berzin, who is in the process of outwitting him again right now in the breakaway here. Nice fast downhill stretch, although our helicopter doesn't show it to us really, but you can tell by the gaps between the wheels the rider's making a quick descent and twisting a little bit. That's all in favour of the riders out in front. Well, I can only imagine that the reason the brake hasn't shut down those three is they're gambling on the last climb, because they can't catch them on the flat. They're keeping a nice tempo. Jalabert looking pretty cool. Fondriest a little bit restless, I think. And Berzin as determined as ever. And there's the man who can't do a thing wrong this year, Laine Jalabert. And there's the man who must wonder what he's doing wrong, having finished second in two big classics already. Little sip of water, just to swill out the mouth, no more than that. Now you can see why Berzin was the pursuiter, how close he came to the back wheel there of Jalabert, whereas the road racing cyclist tends to leave a length or so. But this boy's a track rider, he'll ride tight. You'd think he was being motor pace right now. You see the gap left by Fondriest, the big difference. Now it looks like we've got the MG boys trying to put things to rights here. Gianni Bugno calling on his team to chase down. Alberto Elli sharing the pace with Bugno. And another man called up, David Rebellin. Well, they started only 6 men, the MG boys. They've got 3 of their best right here. Sorensen has been out on the attack as we saw earlier, but he, I presume, has dropped back now. And Salagari and Loda are the other 2 which I haven't noticed. Well, the roads are getting a little bit wider for the moment. Hui is not too far away. They have never been out of the talons of that chase, but they've never got closer than about 30 seconds either. But unlike the earlier breakaway that we saw of 4 men who hovered about 40 seconds in front, these are 3 riders who have proved themselves already as professionals. They have the class and they have the speed in those legs to hold this field off. But they must be feeling very unsure about the finishing climb. And that was Alberto Elli pulling the grimace, as MG trying to put matters to right here. They could win with Rebellin or they could win with Bugno, but first of all they need to catch those 3. Into the trees, always helpful. And the Gay-Wis riders also trying to do their best here to dissect the chase. Number 11 is Bugno, but I think it's Bobrick on his wheel and he won't come through. First came to our notice some years ago, 1990 I think it was, when he was riding in the colours of the Soviet Union in the Tour du Pont and held the lead for a week. this is the gentle climb of the Ben Aha. And Berzin is trying to do something about testing them, I think. Jalabert just dropped back a little bit and is watching, allowing a little bit of a gap between him and Berzin. We're still looking at only 35 seconds gap. But once over the top of this, there's a fair bit of descending into Huy and then the climb to the line. That's all that remains of the 59th Fleche Wallone, and these riders far from out of contention. That's Rux, fifth from the front. Casagrande still here, Bunyo still here. Back with the leaders, and this is Berzin, who's done a lot of work on this climb. Jalabert looking very cool indeed. You'll never tell from his face exactly how he feels right now, that's for sure. A very gallant and always trying Fondriest. This is the chase lower down the slopes. Officially it's 35 seconds. And Bunyo is now dragging them up. But no help on his side at all. He must be feeling a little bit deflated. The fact he's having to do all of the work himself might be an indicator too that his team is not feeling too good. That's Francesco Frattini, who won't help in second place, because his man Evgeny Berzin is right here. Looks as though Berzin is trying to... I thought for a moment Berzin was going to attack, but in fact he was just holding on to the pace being set by Jalabert. And there's a flash to the finishing line as the caravan comes in, and it's not too long now before we'll see if these three riders do survive that long climb up to the finish. It's an absolute brute. Jalabert set a good pace there, but he didn't seem to have hurt either of these two others. And they're coming up to the top of the Ben Aha. The gap has gone out ever so slightly over this group here. Sitting at the back, we have Sergei Uchikov, number 125. He's just gone through on the Polti team. Still here and doing a very good ride today, Martin Den Bakker. Then Zana comes up. Still a pretty workmanlike group, and it seems to have thinned out a little bit on this climb as well. Bunyo looking for somebody else to come and do the work now. He was the one that caused the damage. And there going through is Gianetti from Switzerland. 10 years a pro, Mauro Gianetti. Pretty solid rider over the years. Best remembered, I think, for taking the King of the Mountains in the Kellogg's Tour of Britain, and also the following year, I think it was, he finished second overall, behind Robert Miller. So he's come through in the second group. A little bit of picture breakup again, and we apologise for that, but the three leaders now, they've dangled at around 30 seconds for a long, long way. And to me that indicates, unless there's a great deal of inspiration from the chase group, they're not going to catch up. Well, little Evgeny Berzin knows all about being in the last three in the final showdown. He was here a year ago. He knows what the climb is like. So too does Maurizio Fondriest. Statistics say an Italian will win, because that's the way it's been these last few years. And the only Italian is Fondriest. And while our camera blinks in amazement because of our atmospherics here, it looks as though Jalabert is just anxious now to keep this race going. He must be the favourite, simply because of his 9 victories so far this year. I don't think any of these riders have missed a turn today. It's been a very solid move indeed. They're all winners of big classic races in their career. And they've stamped their authority in these closing miles of the Fleche Wallone today. A lot of downhill now, where they can keep the pace good as they run down into Huy on the banks of the River Meuse. And then they make that turn which takes them up the 25% slopes of the Mur de Huy, the wall. And the gap has gone out slightly. The last time check is now 45 seconds, so they've come off the top of the climb well. Largely due to the pacing there of Jalabert. And that might be enough. Laurent Jalabert, we first noticed him back in 1990 when he took second place in the San Sebastian Classic, and then the following year in 91 finished second in the World Cup. And in 1992 he picked up the green jersey in the Tour de France. Now this is a bit of a chase here which is going on, and this looks like it could be Giannetti still trying to get across. This is a marvellous situation for the three leaders now, because they're out of sight of the chase group. There's Bernard Hinault awaiting at the finish line. Still looking pretty good, considering he's never put his leg over a saddle since the day he retired from cycling, and says he never will. This is still the long descent. These riders must now be considering their next move, because they know the strength of one another after this breakaway. As they run off the hills, they're now heading straight down into Huy. There's not going to be a lot of catching up done by the chasers now, because they can go down this mountain. It's a very, very quick drop, and they can go down here ending up to 80 kilometers an hour. Fondriest just looking to see if Jalabert was still feeling sharp to come through quickly on him, and he was. And the same applies now. He wants to know where Berzan is. The turns are now becoming a little bit shorter as the riders are starting to assess each other. Jalabert moves over to the left, the wing coming slightly off the left side. Well, there hasn't been too many visits by the blackboard man to tell these riders that they really are hanging on by a thread. But since the climb of the Benin, the gap has gone up a little bit. Off goes the bottle. That was the last drink for Jalabert today, as he prepares now for the climb up to the finish. Down, down, down into the streets of Huy. And this is Sergei Uchikov from Polti, who's trying to get clear, and he's being chased by Casagrande, who should be right on him right now. So there's a little bit of a reaction coming from the main field. Well, I think they may have left it too late on the descent, because I don't think the rest of that breakaway was very far off our camera there. This is the chase down, then certainly on the descent the chase group has split up. And sitting here at the back, 124, that's Mauro Giannetti, 31 is Casagrande, so they've regrouped again on the descent. He was chasing, now he's back here. And number 180 is Jose Maria Jimenez from Banesto. He's been here all of the time, we just haven't seen him working at the front. Oh, that's Podenzana, the champion of Italy, who's trying to slip clear. And working very hard too with Almas de las Cuevas. Who tried and failed last time and is trying to go away again. He's still got to climb the hill. Well, it's good to see Berzin is finding his form at this stage of the season. It was here where he found his form last year that took him not only to victory in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, of course, but to victory in the Tour of Italy, which he will defend that championship in this year, and I hope you'll enjoy the tape as we prepare that during the coming summer. So Berzin having to work out how he's going to contend with Fondriest and Jalabert. Two very much on-form riders right now. We're into Huy. Just the wall to come. And the area not very kind to our television pictures today. Jalabert doing just enough to pedal through. Neither rider looking at each other there. And they're not very far from the start of the climb either. Fondriest yet again in at the kill in a big race. I always felt he won his World Championship back in 1988, a little bit prematurely, more or less as a result of the crash of Bauer and Coquillon in sight of the line, but he's certainly progressed since, and now it looks as though Berzin has accelerated a little bit, but not a serious acceleration, or if it was, it's been easily countered by Jalabert. I think it was more an easing of the old muscles rather than an attack. And the chase behind, we understand, has generally come back together again, leaving just these three riders at about 50 seconds their lead, so that is certainly enough. We're looking at the first three finishes in Fleche Wallone today, but we don't know yet which order they'll take it in. Which one's got the strength left to go up the hill the best. I suspect had it been a flat road finish, then Jalabert would have won in the sprint, but who knows now. Jalabert taking the inside chainring very early here. And looking over his shoulder too, just to see there's nobody creeping up. That's always often a sign of a man who's going to put in an attack or wait as long as he can. They're now starting the climb up towards the finish as we move off to the right. Berzin is taking the lead. Now, Berzin didn't last very long on this climb last year. He was shed by his teammates on the slopes. And Fondriest is going to move up and lean on him hard, I think. When they turn left, the road just hits the ceiling. It's a very, very difficult climb, the Huy. And the trouble starts just around the corner, which you can't quite see. And Jalabert already on his inside ring. He went down very early on to that. He was taking nothing of it on his big 53. And the same applies to Fondriest. He's riding a low gear now. A lot of nervous energy being expended just at this minute. And Berzin, who jumped away to victory in Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year on a hill not quite as steep as this, but it had a gradient on it. He's not going to be given that chance today, I don't think. Now just around the corner, and they will really start to climb. Shouts from the crowd. Club cyclists also enjoying the spectacle and knowing just what these riders are going through, thinking that on the top is a classic victory for one of them. Berzin still being left to make the pace. Fondriest, riding a significantly lower gear, is following Berzin. I don't think Fondriest will move unless Jalabert moves. He'll want to get as close to the line as possible. They've got themselves a nice rhythm, and I think they're cooking Berzin at the same time. If Berzin slows, Fondriest will be left with no alternative but to be going through. And there's an acceleration. Well, you've got to take your hat off to little Evgeny Berzin. He's just been content to make it all the way. Now he's looked for some help because I think the legs have finally ached for the last time. He's going to give it one more go. Fondriest is going to leave him there till he's totally fried and then going to accelerate. Now he looks across just to see what Jalabert is thinking. A little bit of resistance from Berzin, but Fondriest is going now, and he's going in a very low gear. Such is the gradient here. And Berzin is gone. He had no answer to that now. And right on his wheel is Jalabert, and not giving an inch. Fondriest has gone, but Jalabert has not dropped an inch here, and that's good for Jalabert. The finish now just around this corner, and Fondriest will now see the finishing line. Jalabert kicks this time. Oh, and a nasty little hook from Maurizio Fondriest. But Jalabert has come round him easily, looks across at Fondriest and says, my 10th win is here. And for the third time this year in a classic, Maurizio Fondriest is second. And indeed, for the second time this year, he's finished second to Laurent Jalabert of France. This young man is having a fairy tale season. So Laurent Jalabert, the first Frenchman to win since 1987. Fleche Wallone is home. Fondriest is second. Berzin is third. Now who's going to make it fourth? And this is going to be the sprint for fourth place. And it's the remnants of that breakaway. And in fact, we've got Mauro Gianetti here, who's just ahead of Casagrande. They've pulled clear of David Rebelan and beat Zeeberg. So it looks as though Gianetti is going to get a surprise finish fourth here. And no, he isn't. It's going to be fifth because Francesco Casagrande gets him on the line. Gianetti will take fifth. And this is David Rebelan is sixth, and Beat Zeeberg is seventh for Carrera. Podenzana coming up the climb. A little way down the hill for him as the riders at Stephen Rooks finishing there. He'll take 10th, Jimenez 11th, and Martin Dembacker rode well there to finish 12th. And it was the fastest Fleche Wallone ever seen. It was around about 5 or 6 minutes faster than last year. What a great result though for France. They have at last found themselves again a champion rider who will now proudly replace Bernard Hinault, and who knows, he might really be a feature in this year's Tour de France. This is how he did it, and he waited till the very last minute, and I think that hook there, you know, perhaps not intentionally by Fondriest, but I think had it come to Fondriest winning, the referees may well have put Fondriest second and given the victory to Jalabert anyway. But it wasn't necessary to find out. Jalabert was far too confident for that and easily took the victory on the line, beating Fondriest for the second time this year in a classic race. The time for the day, it was 4 hours and 51 minutes, and that was an average speed of 42 kilometers an hour, the fastest race on record. Now, don't turn off, because next up is Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the second half of the Ardennais weekend. Can Jalabert make it too?